outside of our viewing area, but just for folks in Poplar Bluff, I want to go ahead and give you a heads up. Tornado warning for Butler, Carter, and Ripley County. That includes the community of Flatwood. This is the storm out here that is going to be heading over into northwestern Butler County fairly soon. Radar indicated rotation right now, but it's one that we'll have to watch closely. We've also got a new severe thunderstorm warning out ahead of this line that's coming from Cape Girardeau into southern Illinois. So this is a severe thunderstorm warning for Union, northern Alexander, and northern and central Pulaski County until 9:15. This is for damaging winds of at least 60 miles per hour and a tornado possible tag on this. And again, this is moving, I believe, at last check, at now 50 miles per hour. So this is again for mainly a damaging wind threat that could spin up a tornado with little to no notice. So here is the latest track on the leading edge of this. Moving to the east at 50 miles per hour. So as it continues on this movement, it is going to be moving into Anna at around 8:41, Olin at 8:45, Vienna at 9:04, Tunnel Hill at 9:09, and Golconda at around 9:31. We'll also need to watch out for this storm toward Karnak, perhaps around 9 o'clock. Worst of the storm just goes to the north of Cairo, but it's going to be a close call. Some really strong winds also moving into places like Olive Branch and Tams over the next 15 minutes or so, perhaps toward Lick Creek and Buncombe just before 9 o'clock. And again, this is a very strong area of straight line winds that we're seeing moving here across the Mississippi River right now. Look at that. That's showing some even stronger winds now just past Cape Girardeau. And as we get closer to the radar site, we might actually see some stronger winds here yet as it gets a better read on the data here with this storm. Stop this and kind of maybe query that and see if we can get a ballpark idea of some of these. At least 60 miles per hour here outside of Cape. Yeah, 63 miles per hour with some of those brighter pixels. So where is that headed next? That's going to be coming into northern Alexander County. You've got Olive Branch and Tams just to the north of that is Olin, and then over toward Grand Chain and Karnak. So these are areas that got hit by a tornado just a few nights ago. And again, here we are with some very strong straight line winds coming in that direction. All right, let's zoom this out here. We continue to monitor a couple of different parts of the storm. There's also some very strong storms up here coming into Carbondale and Anna. The velocity is, we've got some pretty strong outflow winds here around Carbondale right now. And we'll look at the lightning on these as well. There's some lightning in here, not a ton. Typically what we look for is when we have a strengthening storm, the lightning goes up. When a storm is kind of holding its own, you can see several lightning strikes here now within the last 5 minutes or so. Kind of the core of that right over Cape Girardeau, and that's probably where we have some of those absolutely strongest winds. There's also a big uptick in lightning back here between Poplar Bluff and Dexter. That segment of the storm is very healthy. And then, of course, the tornado warning back near Doniphan. A lot of lightning with that as well. There's a little area northeast of Poplar Bluff. We'll watch that. Some strong straight line winds here in Poplar Bluff. And then there's the tornado warned storm that's out near Doniphan. We put a track on it just so that we're kind of out ahead of the game there. Moving to the northeast at about 50 miles per hour. That puts it up pretty close to Poplar Bluff. near or just north of town around 8:58, Lake Wapapello at 9:09, Puxico at 9:16, and then Dexter at 9:26. All right, let's go back over here. Let me check the latest from the Weather Service and the chat to see if we have any new reports. Yeah, we're discussing the formerly tornado-warned storm, the one that's up pretty close to Carbondale and north of Anna. Weather Service saying that those are fairly elevated, so they don't pose any kind of immediate risk for anything tornadic. Also a report of some pea-size hail in Jackson, Missouri with that line of storms that moved through. Somebody a few minutes ago was asking about what is the pink box. So let me go back and talk about that again. The pink box out here, that is a flash flood emergency for Carter County, Missouri, and that includes the Van Buren area, Elsinore. That's Current River. So Current River and all those creeks that feed into it, with all the rain, they're experiencing essentially catastrophic level flooding. It is very serious flooding there. And take note of that pink box, because there's a better than average chance that we're going to see those in other parts of our area late tonight, going into tomorrow, with more flash flood emergencies likely with all of the rain that we have moving into the area. Look at all the rain showing up here on radar from Cape Girardeau back in between Poplar Bluff and Dexter, and then a tremendous amount of rain in association with that tornado-warned storm that's out west of Poplar Bluff. All right, so again, the worst of the storms right now across our area, at least in terms of closing in on the immediate local 6 area, is going to be right here in southern Illinois. This line of storms from Carbondale down near Cape Girardeau, as we switch back over to our winds inside that storm, some pretty strong straight line winds here crossing the Mississippi River into Union and Alexander County. We'll stay with you here until these storms make some progress. If we start to see these things beginning to weaken, which hopefully we do, we'll perhaps think about getting back to programming. We want to stay with this for a little while longer, because what typically happens is sometimes when you get these lines of storms, along that line you can get these little areas of spin that sometimes will produce a quick spin up tornado. So from Anna to Dongola and Olin, leading edge of these storms coming in town here shortly, it's not impossible that you could see a quick spin up. Keep in mind the severe thunderstorm warning here that goes until 9:15. It does have the tornado possible threat tag on it. So those are areas that we still have to be concerned for the potential for a tornado. Mark, you see anything on your end?
Yeah, just there's still a lot of energy in the northern half of that, and so I'm sure that Cape probably had some decent wind speeds, and Vienna, you'll get very windy with this as well. And we're now starting to get a lot of the flood warnings in, flash flood warnings, and with thunderstorms like these, it's not uncommon to have a very heavy rainfall. We've got a lot of moisture in the atmosphere to work with, so there's plenty to make a lot of rain. But then when you have thunderstorms that get larger and they're moving quicker, you get the jet stream involved, then you've got more volume to hold water. These storms get bigger, and then we're talking about a bigger bucket to hold the water. So that's why when these come through, we see some of the 5 to 7 inch per hour rainfall totals, and that's very, very heavy. And I assure you, as we get later into the weekend and the first of next week, that's when we'll really start to see the repercussions of all of this rain. I mean, we've already started, don't get me wrong, but I think the overall toll of having 15, 16 inches in some areas, it's going to be one for the books, no doubt.
Yeah, we've been talking about it for days now. The flooding threat it's really worrisome for tomorrow. It's going to be, I have a feeling we're going to be in some really bad shape for parts of the area that, especially in western Kentucky, Tennessee, the Boot Heel of Missouri. Some of us have already gotten 4 to 8 inches or more, and that's just really not going to be a good situation. Strongest winds right now here coming into basically Highway 51 all the way from Carbondale down toward McCanda, Cobden, Anna, Dongola, and Olin. And as this continues to move east, those strong winds are going to eventually be moving into Marion, Goreville, Buncombe, down toward Vienna and Karnak here over the next little bit. In fact, let's go ahead and zoom out. I'm going to put a fresh track on this to get you caught up on the latest arrivals. This line as a whole is moving to the east at about 45 to 50 miles per hour. So we'll put let's do this. Let's put a track on 2 different segments here so we get a better idea of some of the towns here. So 40 miles per hour here. The Carbondale storm moving into Carterville at 850, Marion at about 901, Creel Springs 909, Galatia 929, and Harrisburg at 934. And then the part of the storm that's here in Union and Alexander County, it's moving to the east at about 45 to 50. So an arrival time here. Olin is going to be coming in here pretty soon at around 8:48. Goreville at 9:01. Vienna at 9:09. Round Knob at 9:29. Eddyville in Pope County here at about 8:33. Here's another little something to watch. And you got to look real close. I'm going to show you something here on radar. So notice there's this little faint green line that shows up from Olin down toward Charleston. That is an outflow boundary. And sometimes when we see those outflow boundaries, that's a sign that the storm is breathing out more cool air than it's breathing in warm air. So sometimes whenever you start to see these storms become what we call more outflow dominant, it does tend to lead sometimes to a little bit of a weakening trend. It also could be that we see additional development fire up in the vicinity of that outflow boundary, but that's just a little something to watch. But right now, the storms here from Carbondale to Anna and Dongola are still very healthy looking and kind of accelerating forward again. So out here from Goreville to Vienna, definitely looking at the potential for some very strong straight line winds coming in here over the next 10 to 15 minutes. Look at that, right here around Anna, bright shades of white, velocity clocking in there at 55, 57 miles per hour. Down here in Alexander County, we've got some 70 and 80 mile per hour readouts. That is not good at all. Yeah, look at this, headed over towards near Tams right now and headed toward Olin. Some of these wind signatures are really strong. Possibly close to 80 mile per hour winds, at least according to what we're seeing on radar in those areas. Again, let's kind of do a reset here across the area. Let me go back over to regular radar and zoom out. Again, we're staying with you here on TV and on Facebook Live because we do have an active tornado warning out in Butler County, and we've also got these severe thunderstorm warnings that carry the tornado possible tag. Actually, let's zoom in here to the Poplar Bluff storm and give you the latest on what's going on there. If you are in western Kentucky and northwest Tennessee, not talking about you guys right now because there's not much to talk about at the moment. Right now, things are centered up over Illinois and Missouri. We've been tracking this storm that's out in between Doniphan and Poplar Bluff. Rotation does not look quite as well defined here as it did just a little bit ago. It looks like we got a new severe thunderstorm warning out ahead of this. This is the area that we've been watching. I'll put this into motion, and you can see that we did have back here near Donovan, there was a little bit of a couplet. We had red and green mixed together. Well, the red's kind of gone away, so it's not quite as organized as it was just a little bit ago. Looks like we got a new severe thunderstorm warning out here for some straight line winds for this storm right here. So let's get you that information. New severe thunderstorm warning is going to run until 9 o'clock now for 70-mile-per-hour winds, quarter-size hail, and a tornado possible tag. That includes Dexter, Stoddard County, up into southern sections of Bollinger County. But some big-time wind possible here in Alexander and moving into Pulaski County here. Let's zoom down here again and take a look at this. Some of those strong winds up here north of Tams and toward the Olin area here, close to I-57 now, south of Dongola. So that's going to be one of the main areas to watch here for possibly some straight line winds, also some straight line winds looking like they're a little more intense up around Anna here in Union County as well. So anywhere here from Goreville south on I-57, expect those winds to get rocking and rolling here very quickly. Yeah, and you can see, Mark, those things are moving on very fast to the east. That lets us know these things are still very healthy.
Yeah, we're certainly going to have spots where winds are strong enough to do some damage. I assure you that when they come through, you'll hear them. They're going to be roaring quite loud. But the good news is it won't last long, and we're not really looking at any rotational boundaries at this point. So, good news is a lot of this has died down, and we can hopefully wrap this up here shortly and be done with it. But for the time being, with the tornado threat out there for at least one of our counties, that's important.
Let's see. Let's check on the status of our tornado warning. Actually, it looks like our tornado warning was canceled.
Okay.
Let me confirm that. Let's move over here and check out Butler County again. Yep, tornado warning was allowed to expire there. The rotation was not looking all that healthy, and it looks like they have allowed that to expire. We still have two pockets of some really strong winds, one here around Anna and one here around Tams and closing in on Olin. Those are really our two biggest problem areas right now. Let me look at a couple products behind the scenes on that. Not really seeing any debris showing up there, but there is definitely some stronger winds coming in there to southern Illinois with these storms. A lot of lightning on the line of storms is down here in Stoddard County, so that is still a very healthy looking storm segment as well. Let me turn in the lightning, turn on the lightning data here. There's a lot of lightning here in Union County and Alexander, so we know this is still a really healthy line of storms. And then as we go to the southwest, right here, coming into Dexter, lots of lightning with that. All right, some new flash flood warnings coming out. Let's turn the lightning off, go back over to regular radar. So these are our two main line segments that we're keeping an eye on. Let's put a track on that southern one. I don't believe we've done that for a little while. It's moving off to the east at about 40 miles per hour as well, 40 to 50. So Oran at around 9:10, Sykeston at 9:15, Charleston at 9:32, and Cairo at around 9:44. Those are going to be the arrival times here on that line of storms. If it holds together, that one may eventually end up in western Kentucky, but it's got a ways to go before it gets there. And then again, watching here the strong winds coming into Tams and Olin here in southern Illinois very shortly. Let's put that into motion. Watch what this thing's been doing over the last little bit. Still kind of bowing out there. And headed toward the Vienna area. That's going to be the next area of concern here for the possibility of some strong straight line winds. Check the chat again. Looks like we may have had an extension to our tornado watch. Yeah, we got a new tornado watch for the Boot Heel, Missouri, and a few counties in northwest Tennessee until 4 a.m. All right, so here's what I think we're going to do. Our tornado warnings have been allowed to expire. We've been going here for a while. We do have our severe thunderstorm warning here from Anna down through Olin. Let me put another track on that, give you some arrival times on this, and then I believe we'll toss it back to programming for a bit, kind of do a little bit of a reset here and watch behind the scenes. This is moving east at 40 miles per hour, so the arrival on this line of storms is coming in to Goreville at around 9:12, Vienna at 9:16, Temple Hill at 9:39, and Golconda at around 9:50. So with this line of storms, last couple radar scans, not quite as strong on the winds here, but we'll be watching this. And then we're also watching our storms back in Missouri in Stoddard County. This line of storms coming up toward Dexter, mainly a straight line wind threat at this point. That's going to be coming up Highway 60 towards Sykeston within the next 30 to 45 minutes. So we thankfully do not have any tornado warnings across our area right now. We do have some of those severe thunderstorm warnings. Those will continue to scroll down at the bottom of the screen. But for now, we're going to take a break. Mark and I are here. We're not going anywhere. We'll keep an eye on these storms. And if we have, well, did we get something new? No. Okay. All right. So we'll keep an eye on these. Any new warnings, we'll pass them along to you. We'll take a quick break, get you back out to programming, and thanks for staying with us here on WPSD Local 6.
To the north and west of it. So I tell you what, I'm going to pop up our graphics here, and then that way we can drive it around. But Trent, you may get to do that after all. But here's Harrisburg, Vienna, Carbondale. There we go. Thank you. And let's put our data on for as far as the velocity data goes. We're probably looking at a couplet that's not real big, and boy, I tell you, we're headed to Louisville on that. But regardless, these storms are going to produce very strong winds, whether there's a tornado warning or not. And here's Goreville, there's 57, and I just don't see there's much in the way of a rotation or a couplet. There's a broad area that's trying to develop around Marion, but for the most part, that's actually north of the polygon. The possible tornado earlier was passing over Goreville, so that's what prompted them to pull the trigger on this warning, and that is tracking towards the north and east rather quickly at 50 miles per hour. But it's not showing a whole lot in the way of any structure at this point. So that being said, they're going to let this at least run its course until 9:30. And since we have a number of viewers in this area, we certainly want everybody aware that this may not be a big tornado. And if you're not anywhere in the path of this tornado, but you're in front of this line, you have to understand it's going to be very active as far as strong straight line winds, larger hail possible, and just torrential rainfall with this as the line swings through. But the encouraging news is it's moving very fast, so it won't be dumping a ton of rain all across the area very long. And again, that is our couplet right there. And I just am having a hard time seeing much in the way of any organization right now. So keep in mind, this is a radar indicated. We don't have eyes on it. We do have it showing up on the radar. This is likely pretty decent distance away from the radar sites. We're talking 5,000–6,000 feet off the ground, possibly a little bit lower. But there's the radar beam. And what happens with the radar is it shoots one angle, and as the Earth curves, that beam does not bend with the Earth's curvature. So that's why it starts to get higher and higher into these thunderstorms. But it will track towards the north and east at 50, so we'll just have to ride this out for the possible tornado there. And judging by what's going on in the chat, let's see. We are hearing that they're in Walker's Bluff, there are power lines that are down. That's from Jackson County Fire Department. And also some power outages in Heron. But I don't see anything else that really pertains to this tornado or what might have been a brief tornado. You can see right there, that was what prompted them to issue the warning. So I'll be full disclosure here. I just don't see it. It doesn't look like it's there now, but it is in a little bit of a bend of this main line. So this could be where it starts to reach down to the ground, and it doesn't show up as well on the radar. But again, when they're along a squall line like this, they usually don't last very long. And that's what happens is these spin up and then they spin themselves out very quickly because of all the energy and the push from the main thunderstorm line. So either way, for those of you up the line, especially around Harrisburg, this portion of the storm will likely swing through your area. And again, a little bit of a notch pushing out like that. This whole line is going to be pushing winds in excess of 70 miles per hour. But in this one little section there, you might get a little bit more of a burst or a little bit of a downburst on the front edge. That's not uncommon. And then we're looking at hail in here, about 3/4 of an inch, nothing real large. And that's encouraging, but right now there's just not much that is showing up as far as a potential tornado. So as we talked about earlier in the evening, we'll probably have to deal with these tornadoes on and off throughout the night tonight, just because of the fact they develop so fast and they're inside of a squall line. You won't see these. These will be embedded in the rain and likely the front edge wind. So it's not going to be a tornado that you could go take pictures of or anything along those lines. It's going to be embedded, likely rain wrapped, maybe some hail around it, about 3/4 of an inch, but that would be about it. And here's some of the locations. Creel Springs, 918, Harrisburg, 936, El Dorado, 942, and then New Haven, we're looking at about 10 o'clock, and then Black at 10:16. So these are, it looks like Trent's put a new track on it, so that would basically cover this notch, which has developed, especially to the south and east of Marion. So overall, we're looking at a line of storms that have actually been severe for a while now, and the reason the warning was issued is because of a brief rotation that happened on a couple of scans for the National Weather Service to issue this warning. And if you're not necessarily under the gun with this storm in particular, with the possible tornado, the main line is still very dangerous. Notice all that energy pushing through. Round Knob, 930, you'll be getting the main edge of this. And look at that outflow boundary. That right there is starting, that little green line is actually the wind that has been pushing. It's running along the surface, the spinning column, and we call those outflow boundaries. That will make it very breezy before the storms get there by a couple of minutes. But then Eddyville about 9:32 and Cave and Rock 10:02. So these are spots that will have the main line swing through. Expect those gusty winds, Expect it to be just a cold wind to begin with, and then the storm will start to build in, because a lot of this air is getting pushed down on the front edge, and that is why it's colder, is because it's been higher in the atmosphere. And that's why we've also seen a decent amount of hail reports with this whole complex throughout the evening tonight. This does stretch all the way back south of Cape Girardeau, though, and again, flooding has now become an issue. Not only has Cape Girardeau been under the gun tonight, but also earlier in the week, and we're now looking at flooding on top of that. So this is going to be a long duration and long scenario of rain and storms as we head into the weekend, because this is actually one wave. We've got another that will be moving in here tomorrow, which again will have a ton of rain and a ton of water to work with. But this is the flood warning. This is until 3 a.m. It's for flash flood, and that means flash flood means in a hurry. A short amount of time it can flood. Water can gather very quickly. Flood warning is more of a longer duration. Over time, it builds, usually affected by rivers as well.
That's actually, they pulled the trigger on, that's actually a flash flood emergency. You can see
so
the
this
catastrophic
has just been upgraded,
yeah.
And it's now a flash flood emergency, and the threat is considered and tagged with what's called catastrophic, and that means that there's water that it just can't go anywhere, and we're really seeing a lot of the tributaries that are being overrun and just can't handle the load of water that is falling. So that is going to be for the Cape Girardeau area, Cape Girardeau County. That will last until 3 a.m. Please, I can't emphasize enough, do not drive through water over a road. Whether you know it, whether you can see the other side or not, you don't know what's going on up under the surface, and a lot of times that's where the road is getting washed out. Something may be pushed out under the water, and if you try to drive through it, if you go off into it, you're stuck. There's no way you're going to be able to get out of that, and it could be rushing water can be very dangerous, and not only pick up your vehicle, but if you try to get out in it, it's very strong, and that's why we have more people die from flooding in our country than we have with tornadoes and hurricanes and lightning. So take that in mind. If you see an area that is very heavily flooded, find a different route. Do not try to drive through it, especially if your car stalls out. So looking at this latest warning, well, I tell you, Trent, it is not looking like we have a tornado there.
No, it's not.
You know, I'm betting offhand that they're going to let this expire. If it was a straight up solid signature, I would bet we would be seeing a new warning coming out, but it doesn't look like that's going to happen. So what's likely happened is this line has absorbed it, and that's disrupted the rotation. And when you have, it's like a whirlpool in water. Once it's disrupted, it starts to fall apart, starts to level off. And we still have broad rotation, and that happens in a line of thunderstorms. You have winds blowing all kinds of directions at different levels, but yeah, I just don't see anything that looks like we're picking up any debris, no couplet, no debris ball, nothing that stands out that says that there's a tornado on the ground. And actually, the rotation is now up here, and it was down here earlier tracking this way, so I would bet offhand we're starting to see a little bit of a spin on the north end of it, but that is just about out of the polygon area. So with that in mind, we'll go ahead and we'll back off on the coverage right now. I'll certainly be watching this throughout the evening, and then be back at about 10 o'clock with an update and a look at your forecast as well. But we'll still be watching the severe weather threat for the rest of tonight into early tomorrow morning. And if need be, we'll interrupt programming and let you know about a tornado warning. But right now, we're going to scale things back and take you back to programming at NBC.
Over the next 45 minutes or so, the storm's moving east at 35 miles per hour. So let's put a track on that, and then we'll dive down into a little bit closer view of what's going on there. The storm again near Sykeston, right there at the I-57 and 55 interchange, coming up here shortly. It'll be headed over toward Charleston at 9:51, Wyatt at 10:02, Cairo at 10:10, Bardwell 10:20 and La Center at 10:30 arrival time. So it's going to be a little while before it gets over here into western Kentucky, but this storm is looking fairly healthy here. This is a new area of rotation that's developed here shortly, and we'll go down for a closer view of what's going on inside of this storm. As again, here's I-55, here's I-57, that interchange there. Not the strongest looking area of rotation that we've seen tonight, but it's something to keep an eye on here. Zoom out here and loop this over the last few minutes and see how this latest scan compares to what we just had. It kind of popped up there for one scan. There was a little more noticeable area of rotation, and it's kind of a little less defined at this point. There's a little something there, but is not just jumping off the page at us at the moment. It was a little weaker, or a little stronger rather, a couple of scans ago. But we'll keep an eye on it here for you, as we're going to be hanging out until this warning is allowed to expire. It will be coming right up Highway 60, right through Charleston. And again, here's I-57, as this tornado warning will run until 10:15. We do have other storms that we're watching as well, in addition to this one, that are producing some strong straight line winds. We've got a severe thunderstorm warning that continues here in Johnson, northern Massac, and Pope County. That runs until 10 o'clock. This is for some straight line winds, possibly 60 miles per hour, although the latest scans of the radar, this thing's really kind of falling apart pretty quickly. And then as we move up to the north, we were tracking a storm that did prompt that tornado warning that we were just on air for a little while ago. That storm is now moving on up toward Harrisburg, El Dorado, and McLeansboro. Not really seeing anything in terms of real well-defined rotation. There's a couple of notches here of some strong winds. One of those areas is up here east of Benton, moving up toward McLeansboro, and we've got some pretty strong winds showing up around Harrisburg, but those are mainly of the straight line variety. Again, the storm coming in from Eddyville to Dixon Springs, it's really weakening quite a bit, but our main area of concern right now is this rotation that popped up around Sykeston. It is possible that it could redevelop and re-strengthen as we go back over to regular reflectivity mode on radar. It's a little easier to see there why there's a little bit of concern for rotation. There's a bit of a hook echo that shows up here. And you can see from Blodgett down to Sykeston how this thing kind of hooks just a little bit right in here, this little notch there. Going to be traveling up pretty much parallel to and just north of I-57 here toward Dealstad and Charleston over the course of the next 15 to 20 minutes. So let's zoom the camera back out here, check on the rest of our storms, and while we do that here, we look at the Weather Service. They are kind of in agreement with what we're seeing, that the storm is not looking quite as healthy as it did just a few minutes ago. So this storm, the chances of it producing a tornado are not zero, but not as likely here. It's kind of outrunning the better dynamics. And so it's, again, something to watch, but the tornado warning here running until 10:15. I do not anticipate that it will last that long with the storm kind of not looking quite as healthy and as organized as it was just a few minutes ago. Really don't see much on radar with this at the moment. So let's give you another check up and down this line real quick. Just with the way this thing is weakening quickly, I really don't see any major need to be overly concerned with this. We do have some strong gusty straight line winds from McLeansboro to Harrisburg right now. Those are moving off to the northeast. Carmi and Norris City will be in the path of that. And then here again, our tornado warning storm close to Sykeston. Let's go down for a quick view here. Oh, hit the wrong button, sorry about that. Let's go back to the zoom in button. And again, yeah, this thing really is looking pretty disorganized at this
just
point.
don't see it.
Yeah, so here's the tornado warning does continue till 10:15. We'll watch it from behind the scenes. We're about 20 minutes out from our newscast, so we really need to get some work done to get ready for our 10 o'clock newscast. We've got a lot to talk about in terms of heavy rain and flooding issues. So tornado warning until 10:15. I don't expect that it will last much longer. You can see that it was just trimmed back a little bit. Let me read out that new update from the Weather Service, see what their thinking is here. Don't see that yet. But at any rate, from Sykeston over toward Charleston, let's watch this. And we're going to watch it from behind the scenes. If we have anything new here, if it happens to re-strengthen, we'll cut back in and let you know. But this thing seems to be on a downward trend. So for now, we're going to get you back out to programming. And of course, if we don't have anything new on this storm, we'll be back with you here in about 20 minutes for Local 6 at 10. For now, we'll get you back out to programming.
Made simple.
All right, all eyes turning to possible flooding this weekend.
Yeah, meteorologist Mark Daniels joining us now. Still rain on the way, right?
There is a lot of rain on the way, and we've been dealing with thunderstorms taking our turns with Nolan as well as Chief Meteorologist Trent Okerson. We're getting kind of tired, a little punchy, but a lot to talk about. So let's get started. You'll see the watch, which is in effect is a tornado watch until 4 a.m., and that does include all of the counties you see highlighted in red. Now, as the line of storms tracks a little more towards the south and east, we'll start to see those trend back from northwest to southeast. But this watch will stay in effect right through tonight, through Saturday, through Sunday, and it's all for the flooding potential. There is a flash flood emergency now for Cape Girardeau County, and that is because of so much water in such a short amount of time on top of very saturated grounds. And then we've got flash flood warnings, which are popping up in many locations. These come and go rather quickly, but we did have a few in our southeast counties earlier in northwest Tennessee. And tomorrow, again, we'll have another opportunity at strong, possibly severe thunderstorms to move through our area. And that does include Paducah, Mayfield, Murray, all the way down to northwest Tennessee, where there's a level 3 elevated risk of severe storms. Here is the line for tonight. We've got more on the way, but this line of storms has actually started to bow out on the north end, so that's producing severe winds. And on the south end, we've seen an occasional, maybe a spin-up tornado for about 10 minutes at the most on a couple of these storms, and that has prompted warnings. This is a severe thunderstorm warning with the possibility of being upgraded to a tornado warning if we have that development again. But right now it's just moving into Cairo. Wickliffe, you'll see this very heavy rain soon. You've likely already had the gusty winds come through. Same for La Center. Paducah, you'll have the heavy portion of the storm pass through within the next 10 to 15 minutes. But again, that track is towards the north and east, so we're monitoring this very carefully. And if we do have any development as far as any rotation or our velocity data starts to show there is a tornado developing, we'll interrupt and certainly give you an update on that. But again, from Carmi due south, just north of Marion, all the way over to Vienna, very strong winds, very heavy rainfall. The southeast counties are pretty quiet, all things considered right now, but we have had a couple of showers and thunderstorms beginning to develop out ahead of the main line in northwest Tennessee. So again, a lot of areas to watch very carefully. And then once we get past the severe weather threat, we've got this to deal with. And I haven't even updated this because of the severe weather, but I assure you some of these are now over 9, possibly 10 inches total for rainfall in the past several days. And there's a possibility we could have another 6 to 8 more on top of that. But this is going to be the boundary that just doesn't leave for a couple of days. That's why we'll have showers and thunderstorms all across our area. And then by Sunday night into early Monday, we finally get the moisture out of here. But in the meantime, this is what we've got through the night tonight. More rain, 2, 3, 4 a.m. It builds back in. We've got thunderstorms likely. And at this point, the rain that will be the heaviest will be around the thunderstorms or the clusters of thunderstorms in a line. And then look at this, by 1 o'clock tomorrow, everybody getting poured on again. Just remarkable amounts of rain falling across one given area over several days. And that will last through Saturday night. Now, keep in mind, we'll get a break Saturday night, but then Sunday, another round of showers develops. And then once that moves out, we get much colder. Colder air will dive into our area, and we're looking at temperatures in the 40s and 50s for highs, with the overnight lows back down around freezing, if you can believe that. It's been an interesting spring so far. Here are the rainfall totals, or at least I should say the projections. About 6 inches in Paducah. Mayfield, you may get another 6 inches along with Murray. Martin, look for 7 inches. Again, this is what's coming overnight tonight and during the day tomorrow. So we're not done adding to the rain gauge just yet. It is going to be very heavy as far as rainfall goes, and our totals are just going to create so many problems with flooding. Can't emphasize it enough. Do not drive across roads that have water covering them. It's just important. We're talking about very dangerous situation. The chance of rain and thunderstorms right through Sunday, and then Monday turning cooler. Overnights back down near freezing.
All right, Mark, thanks. Stay safe this weekend by keeping track of the weather with our Local 6 weather app.
We make it worth the drive every time.
You're watching WPSD Local 6.
All right, full coverage of the recovery efforts for those impacted by this week's storms ahead in a minute.
Yeah, but first, as we continue to monitor flooding in our area, we've got another live look with our Taylor Bryan. She's in Graves County, Kentucky, an area prone to flooding.
Yeah, so Taylor, how are conditions there now?
Todd, they're looking a little bit better than what it was earlier. As you can see that the creek has definitely gone down significantly from earlier today when Blaine McDonald was out here. And when I talked to local law enforcement, they said that they were holding on to hope that it wouldn't continue to rain as much, or at least let it be sporadic, so that it allows the water levels to continue to go back down. As you heard earlier, Mark said that this area could get another 6 inches of rain. So if that is what happens, people definitely need to slow down. You need to pay attention to the roads, pay attention to the weather, and also pay attention to the roads and use the rule of thumb. KYTC usually says that if you see water on the road that is past the median line, do not cross it. It is not worth your life. Live in Graves County, Kentucky, Taylor Bryan, WPSD Local 6.
All right, Taylor, thanks. Ahead of potential generational flooding, many communities across the Mid-South are still recovering from this week's devastating storms.
Yeah, towns of Arkansas, Illinois, Kentucky, Tennessee, and beyond grapple with the process of rebuilding, knowing there's even more to come. You're looking at the aftermath of a large tornado in Lake City, Arkansas. Wow. That community suffered demolished homes, wrecked cars, down power lines, trees just shorn to pieces. Thankfully, no fatalities there, although hard to believe looking at those images. More cleanup underway throughout the Mid-South. This is a building in Hopkinsville, Kentucky that partially collapsed after heavy rain.
Yeah, there were no reported injuries at that site. In Tennessee, the current death toll from this week's severe storms, 5, but authorities warn there are likely more.
Yeah, the community of Selmer is in recovery after a powerful EF3 tornado touched down this week. Residents there in the southwest corner of the state are busy trying to salvage whatever they can. Power crews are working to restore electricity. Authorities are still looking for residents who are missing. Governor Bill Lee visited that area, spoke with emergency management teams about the death toll as fears of flooding complicate recovery efforts. In Indiana, residents in Vanderburgh County been in the painful process of picking up the pieces after devastating severe weather. Roofs torn off homes, trees uprooted, power lines pulled to the ground. For residents, it's something they'd never thought they'd see in their own backyards.
I could hear the garage roof coming off, and I looked out the front door and I said, there's our roof out in the front yard. I've been in some windstorms and stuff, but nothing like this.
While everybody in the area escaped the storm unharmed, the emotion